In the last lesson, we explored some strategies on how to manage our emotions to avoid escalating a conflict. Some of those strategies that we talked about were walking away, counting, slow breathing, reframing unhelpful thoughts, and positive self talk. So today we'll learn how to listen to and consider someone else's perspective during a conflict. Imagine this girl is walking directly toward you. What do you think she's about to do? What do you think her intentions are? Some of you might think she's mad, frustrated, angry, about to yell at you. Many of us had different ideas about her intentions. But what if I told you she was worried about an assignment and wanted your help? Does that change what you think she's about to do? We know that jumping to conclusions and assuming negative intentions are two common reasons conflicts escalate. When we do either of these things, we're automatically deciding that we know what the other person's perspective is. So is a difference between perspective and perspective taking. So perspective is how someone thinks or feels about something based on experience or personal preference. Perspective taking is the process of being able to identify and understand another person's feelings, thoughts, needs, and wants. How do you feel when someone's wrong about your perspective? Let's see how we can use what we know about how our brains work and the emotion management strategies we learn to avoid jumping to conclusions and assuming negative intentions in the following scenarios. Frankie is leaving the girls' bathroom when she hears Roy say her name down the hall, and all his friends start laughing immediately. She's really upset. Why are they laughing at me? She thinks. What decision has Frankie made about Roy and his friend's perspective? That's right. She thinks that they're laughing at her. But does she really know what their perspectives are? What could she do to avoid jumping to conclusions? She could manage emotions, stop and think, get more information, or even ask direct questions about the other person's perspective. Sometimes you can't get direct information or ask questions about someone's perspective, so it really helps to keep an open mind and imagine other possible explanations. So let's try that now. What other possible explanations are there for Roy and his friend's actions? Some possible perspectives. Their actual perspective. It turns out Roy told his friends he was thinking about asking Frankie to the upcoming dance. Roy's friends were laughing at him because they didn't think he would have the nerve to ask her. So, imagining other explanations helps us avoid jumping to conclusions. The next scenario. Andre and Dennis have been friends since elementary school, but now they go to different schools. For the past year, they've been playing an online game after school once a week, and it's been really fun. Last week, Dennis didn't log on. He texted Andre to say he was busy, though. He did the same this week, but didn't text. Andre waited online for him for 15 minutes. He's blowing me off, he thinks. He doesn't want to play with me anymore and doesn't have the courage to tell me. Andre sends Dennis an angry text message. We've learned that our brains have a negativity bias and are wired to pay more attention to negative things than positive things. How could Andre reframe his unhelpful thoughts and assume positive intentions instead? So here, reframing unhelpful thoughts. He could say, I don't know what's going on for him. Maybe he's busy again. This is the first time he hasn't texted me. Or, it's no big deal. I know he likes playing with me. When we reframe our unhelpful thoughts, we can remind ourselves that we don't really know the other person's perspective. We also learned that noticing good things and saying something positive to ourselves about them helps rewire our brains to pay attention to the positives and think helpful thoughts. What are some good things Andre could notice about his friendship with Dennis And what could he say to himself about them? So let's look at this positive self talk. He's been my friend for a long time. We have a lot of fun together. We've been really committed to playing each week. As it turns out, Dennis texts the next day to say he had to go and help his grandma after school. He forgot to take his phone with him. He apologizes for not letting Andre know. Let's look at the last scenario. Brian's friends all got good grades in math this semester, but Brian's grade was much lower than he expected. He's really upset and starts telling others that he got a low grade because his teacher doesn't like him. How could Brian reframe his unhelpful thoughts, assume positive intentions, and use positive self talk instead? He could ask, I wonder why my grade is lower, instead of assuming the teacher doesn't like him. He could also think, I need to ask about this because it doesn't seem right. Come to find out, Brian's math teacher had accidentally left a test grade blank in the gradebook. When the teacher corrected the mistake, Brian's grade went up to where he expected it to be. Think of a time when you were involved in a conflict and listened to the other person's perspective. How did listening to their perspective change your own perspective of the conflict? How could you have listened to their perspective before the conflict escalated? Learning to listen to another person's perspective in a conflict is a very helpful tool in keeping conflicts from escalating. As you go about your week, if you do encounter a conflict, keep in mind that old saying, there are two sides to every story. Now that we've learned how to avoid escalating conflicts, we'll spend the next lesson learning how to resolve conflicts.